I was back in my childhood home. It felt strange. This place used to comfort me, but now it felt like a prison. My husband had died just a few months ago. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. Each reminder of him made it worse. One night we had a town meeting. The rain pounded on the roof, making everything louder. I stood up and shouted at the council. I couldn't hold it in anymore. They were ignoring us. I saw the faces of the people listening, wide with disbelief. I didn't care anymore. After that night, things changed. I went home to an empty mailbox. I didn't think anything of it. Maybe I just had bad luck. But a few days later, I noticed strange scratches in the dirt of my yard. They looked like symbols, and they seemed to pulse under the moonlight. Each time I stepped outside, a cold sweat trickled down my back. I started sitting on my porch every night. From there, I saw them. Children's toys appeared, one after another. A rusty toy truck, a doll with one eye, a teddy bear with a frayed smile. At first I felt anger, but that quickly turned to dread. I thought I heard whispers carried on the wind. Maybe it was my grief. Maybe I was losing my mind. No one seemed to talk to me anymore. I could feel the tension when I walked by. I tried talking to my neighbors. They avoided my gaze and looked away. Did I upset them? Maybe I had kicked up some darkness. I ventured into town, hoping for some warmth. But every time I approached someone, their conversations hushed. Faces turned away like I was invisible. I walked among shadows and it felt wrong. It was like I had broken some rule I didn't know existed. Then one night, I saw a figure by the edge of my yard. It was just standing there watching me. My heart raced. I needed to know who it was. "Who's there?" I called out, but there was no answer. I turned to get help, but when I looked back, it was gone. Just like that. A knot twisted in my stomach. I stood frozen in place. I opened my mouth to call for help again, but nothing came out. Days went by and the toys kept appearing. Even a small piano that played a soft, eerie tune. I felt trapped. My words at that meeting had stirred something dark, but what? I wished I could take it back. I started to wonder if my anger had unleashed something. I didn't know should I be scared of what was happening or scared of myself. This feeling gnawed at me. I was alone in a place I once called home, haunted by whispers and shadows. Then the final crack hit me. One night I stepped outside and the air felt heavy. I could hear laughter, childlike, innocent laughter. When I turned to look, the figure was back. It stood there, too close now. And I finally understood. I might have awakened something I shouldn't have. I thought of my bitterness and wondered if I had invited this chaos into my life. It seemed I was the only one left in the dark. What I did next spiraled my life into an unraveling I never thought possible. The next morning I woke up feeling unsettled. The laughter still echoed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the idea that something was wrong. I threw on a jacket and made my way down the creaky stairs, hoping the sunlight would chase away the shadows in my head. Outside, I found more toys scattered across the yard. A bright yellow tricycle stood out among the scattered remnants. I knelt down to pick it up, staring at the rusted handlebars. It seemed so out of place. I expected someone to confess they'd been playing a prank on me, but deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. Each toy felt heavy with expectation, as if they were watching me. What did they want from me? Didn't they understand I was already burdened by loss? I tossed the tricycle aside, and it landed with a thud in the grass. I decided to confront my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. She had lived next door for decades and used to be friendlier. As I approached her door, my heart pounded. Would she look me in the eye? Would she even answer? I knocked, the sound echoing down the empty street. After a moment, I heard shuffling inside. The door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Thompson's tired face. Her eyes were wide, and I saw instant concern wash over her features. "Is everything all right, dear?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone else. I just wanted to know why everyone seems to be avoiding me, I said. My voice wavered. And I keep finding toys in my yard. Do you know anything about it? Her eyes widened further, and she quickly glanced at the ground, as though the toys were lurking at her feet. I can't talk about that. You shouldn't be out here. Why? I pressed. The dread in her demeanor unsettled me. What happened? Before she could answer, a loud crash came from the backyard, a sound that made us both jump. Without thinking, I turned to look. The back gate had fallen open. When I glanced back at Mrs. Thompson, her face had gone pale. You should go inside, dear, now. My heart raced. What's happening? I asked. I can't help you, she shouted, slamming the door in my face. I stood there, stunned. The door felt like a wall, separating me from the answers I desperately sought. Fear twisted in my gut. Now I was truly alone. Turning to the backyard, I felt drawn to that crash. I stepped through the gate, ready to face whatever awaited me. The toys lay in a pile at the edge of the yard, but one stood out, an old music box, half buried in the dirt. That's when I saw it. An inscription carved into the wood, a name I hadn't seen in years. My husband's name. My breath caught in my throat. The world seemed to spin. This wasn't just some twisted game anymore. I had to uncover the truth, what I had awakened, and how to silence it, or risk losing everything all over again. I knelt down, my fingers trembling as I ran them over the name carved into the music box. Adam. Memories flooded back, his laughter, the way he used to dance around the living room with me, his warmth. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I dug deeper into the dirt, pulling the music box free. As I wiped away the grime, I saw the delicate engravings around the sides, flowers, leaves, and the same inscription inside that I had once grown to love. The moment I clicked the lid open, a haunting melody began to play, echoing through the air in a way that made my skin prickle. I saw flashes of the past, memories that felt like they were not mine alone. Laughter faded into whispers, then screams. I flinched, closing the box to silence it. Should I keep it? Should I get rid of it? I didn't know, but I felt a compulsion to understand why it was here in my yard. My heart raced. I could feel eyes on me again, as if the toys were all watching, waiting for my next move. The air felt different, charged with an energy I couldn't name. I staggered back to stand, clutching the box tightly. Then, a soft rustling startled me. I spun around, my breath quickening as my gaze locked onto a figure lurking behind the edge of the fence. It was just a child, thin and wild-haired, peeking through the planks. His wide, dark eyes were filled with shadows, and despite the distance, he looked both familiar and foreign. My heart sank. I recognized that child. It was the boy from the stories Adam used to tell me back when the neighborhood was filled with laughter and life. The boy he would always claim he could hear but never see. "What do you want?" I called, my voice shaky. He pointed at the music box, speaking in whispers that curled around my heart like a serpent. "It's time," he said. "You have to find the others." "Others?" My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" But he didn't answer. With a swift movement he darted away, vanishing like a wisp of smoke. I was left standing there, both frightened and curious. What others? What was going on in this town? Just then, I heard laughter again, more children's laughter, intermingled with the haunting melody still playing in my head. Panic surged through me, and I looked around the yard. I could feel the weight of their presence, the toys and their laughter pulling me back into the past I thought I had left behind. What if I had awakened something in the town with that music box? What if I was about to dive headfirst into a nightmare I could not escape? Determined to confront whatever awaited me, I stepped forward. I needed answers. I needed to understand. But as I moved, a shadow flickered at the corner of my eye, and just like that, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, my heart racing. It took me a moment to realize I was on the ground. The music box lay beside me, untouched. The shadows of the night were thick, pressing in around me. I scrambled to my feet, brushing dirt off my clothes. "What happened?" I whispered to the empty yard, my voice trembling. The weight of silence fell heavily, broken only by the whispering trees. I turned the music box over in my hands, considering its significance. Had I truly seen the boy? Was he real, or just a figment of my imagination? I scanned the yard, hoping to catch a glimpse of him again, but no one emerged. Familiar laughter echoed faintly in the back of my mind, a melody entwined with fear. On impulse, I took the box inside. I couldn't keep it outside, not when something felt so wrong. As I closed the door behind me, I noticed the toys still lined up on the shelf. They looked back at me, their painted eyes catching the dim light. I wasn't sure if they felt like friends or foes, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that they were part of all this. I set the music box on the table. It seemed out of place, like a relic from another time. I needed to know more, so I grabbed my laptop, determined to uncover the truth. As I searched the town's history, I stumbled upon an old news article. Mysterious disappearances in Pinewood. Children vanish without a trace. My pulse quickened as I read. There it was, the flawed connection of those who had gone missing years ago. It mentioned families torn apart, similar tales to the stories Adam used to tell. An ache crept into my chest. Had the boy been one of them? How many others were still out there? I gasped as a photograph caught my eye, a group of children playing in front of an old house. One boy stood in the middle, his dark eyes wide with a chilling familiarity. It was him. "What happened to you?" I whispered into the stillness. Suddenly a loud thud echoed from deeper within the house. I froze, heart pounding in my ears. Shadows danced on the walls, and a chill swept through the room. "Is someone there?" I called, forcing myself to stand tall. The dim light flickered, and a door at the end of the hall creaked open. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I stepped cautiously towards the door. It felt as if shadows were stretching out, reaching for me. I held my breath. Just beyond that door lay the unknown, and I had already gone too far to turn back now. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard a whisper float through the air, laced with urgency and menace. "You're too late." The door swung open, revealing nothing but darkness. My hands trembled as I stood at the threshold, caught between the safety of the known and the pull of the unseen. Then, without warning, the lights flickered again, and I remembered the music box. It felt alive in my hands. Before I could react, it sprang open once more, unleashing that haunting melody, filling the air with calls from the past. I stumbled back as the whispers grew closer, each note vibrating with a sense of impending doom. This wasn't just music. It was a key, a call to the others. And I wasn't prepared for what was about to unfold. The music's haunting melody filled the room, pulling me back from the precipice. I clutched the music box tighter, my fingers trying to ground me, to find stability. But the shadows that had slowed down shifted suddenly, and I felt a chill in the air. The whisper lingered in my mind. "You're too late." What did it mean? I looked back at the open door, the darkness beyond it feeling like a living thing. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to put distance between myself and whatever wanted to come through. But the curiosity, the need to know what was happening kept me rooted to the spot. The music intensified, and that's when I noticed something change. The air around me shimmered, as if the shadows were coalescing into shapes. I squinted, trying to pierce the gloom. Then I saw it, a faint outline of a figure standing just beyond the doorway. "Who are you?" I whispered, electric fear coursing through my veins. The figure remained still, but I could feel its presence, an energy that prickled my skin. I felt my heart pounding harder with every second. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from upstairs, shattering the moment. I spun around, adrenaline coursing through my body. I clutched the music box to my chest, torn between the promise of answers and pressing terror. Another crash rang out, followed by a familiar voice, but it was distorted, faint. Help. Me. It was Adam. The sound sent me racing toward the staircase, my mind racing with questions. Why was he here? How was he part of this? With each step I felt a weight pressing on my chest, but I couldn't turn back. I needed to see. Halfway up the stairs I hesitated. The air thickened and the shadows seemed to stretch higher, reaching toward me. Stay away, I shouted, clenching my fists. I didn't want this fear to drown me. Ignoring my racing heart, I pushed myself up the last few steps. At the top, I turned left toward the hallway leading to Adam's old room. The door stood ajar, a sliver of moonlight spilling through the gap. As I approached, my breath caught in my throat. Memories flooded my mind. Laughter, warmth, late-night talks. I stepped into the room, half expecting to find Adam sitting there, waiting for me with that crooked smile. Instead, the air was stagnant. Then, I saw it. The music box sat on the desk, open, the melody continuing to play, though I hadn't touched it. My heart sank. How was it here? I knew I had left it downstairs. Panic surged through me. That's when I saw it, I muttered to myself as I scanned the room. On the wall, a faded photo displayed the same children from the article. But that wasn't all. There, among them, was the boy, standing next to Adam. A cold shiver skated up my spine. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, feeling the urgency press against my chest. Suddenly I felt something tap my shoulder. Before I could turn, the lights flickered out, plunging me into darkness. My pulse raced. I could hear the faint, teasing notes of the music box echoing around me like a taunt. And then came that same whisper, growing louder. "You're too late." A sensation of drowning grief gripped me as I realized my entire world was spinning out of control. I strained to breathe, the darkness thickening, leaving me vulnerable to whatever shadows lay in wait. The room felt suffocating in the darkness. Panic bubbled up in my throat as I swung around, searching for the source of the tap. "Who's there?" My voice trembled, echoing back at me, swallowed by the gloom. I was alone, yet the air crackled with an unseen presence. I reached for my phone, fumbling through pockets until my fingers grazed the cold screen. I hit the button, and a faint light cut through the darkness. The glow illuminated the music box, its polished surface shining eerily. Shadows danced, twisted by the dim light, warping into forms I couldn't quite grasp. In that moment, a noise came from the hallway, a light footfall that sent a jolt through me. "Adam!" I called out, hoping against hope. The only reply was silence, thick and oppressive. I took a hesitant step toward the doorway, my heart racing. What was happening here? The music box played on, as if mocking my fear, each note sliding into my mind like ice. I needed to know if Adam was hurt. Gathering my courage, I edged into the hallway, the light from my phone pooling at my feet. As I crept forward, I froze when I saw a shadow dart past the end of the corridor. "Adam!" I shouted, the name slipping out in desperate urgency. I rushed toward the direction of the movement, ignoring the sense of dread wrapping tightly around me, but as I reached the end of the hall I stumbled to a halt. The door to the attic was ajar. The handle twisted slightly as if someone had just been there. My stomach dropped. The attic? Why would he go up there? Breathless, I squeezed through the narrowing space and found the staircase leading up to the attic. Old wood creaked beneath my weight, every step eliciting a sound that echoed unnaturally in the stillness. My palms were slick, and I wiped them on my jeans. "Just keep going," I whispered to myself. "Just find him." Once at the top, I hesitated before pushing the door open. It creaked loudly, and I blanched. Clinging to the frame, I scanned the dark space. Boxes littered the floor, old clothes and forgotten memories stacked haphazardly. There was no sign of Adam. Then I noticed something peculiar. A small beam of light broke through a dusty window, illuminating an object at the far end of the attic. I stepped closer, drawn to it like a moth to a flame. When I reached it, my breath caught. It was another music box, identical to the one in the room below. But this one was closed, the intricate carvings on its surface dull and neglected. My hand trembled as I touched it, half expecting it to spring to life. But instead, a chill swept through me, and then I heard it. The faint whisper again, laced with urgency. "You're too late." A deep sense of wrongness gripped me. I was missing something, the pieces slipping through my fingers like sand. And then, as if to answer my silent questions, I saw a crumpled piece of paper partially hidden underneath the box. I snatched it up, my fingers shaking. It was a journal entry, Adam's handwriting looped across the page. "I can't let them find me." It ended abruptly, trailing off into ink stains. Fear crashed over me. I was unraveling something far darker than I had anticipated. Footsteps. I spun on my heel, the thumping of my heart drowning out everything else. Someone was in the house. My breath hitched. Panic screamed in my chest as I quickly scanned the attic, searching for a place to hide. The sound of footsteps grew louder, approaching the stairs. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to flatten my body as small as possible, hoping to stay unseen. The footsteps halted right outside the attic door. I held my breath, feeling as though I might suffocate in the silence. A shadow lingered in the doorway. It was too dark to make out any details, but I could feel its presence like an insistent weight. "Adam," a voice whispered, fragile and shaky. It wasn't his voice. "Are you up there?" I recognized that voice. It was Sarah, our neighbor. The same woman who always seemed to be everywhere at once, showing up just when I didn't want company. "What are you doing here?" I thought, torn between relief and an urge to scream for her to leave. "Please, Adam, answer me," she called again, her voice quavering with what sounded like urgency. "I know you're hiding. You need to come down." What did she know? Why was she looking for him? Glancing back at the journal entry in my hand, the ink stains seemed to burn into my mind. I couldn't let her find that. It felt too raw, too revealing. With a sudden movement, I hunched down, peering around the corner of the attic door. Sarah's silhouette remained under the low-hanging beam, the faint light from the stairwell illuminating her worried face. She looked frantic. My heart raced, and I realized I had to act. "Go downstairs," I wanted to shout, but no words left my mouth. Instead, I felt frozen, caught in a web of uncertainty. What if she was in danger? What if Adam really was hiding from her? I couldn't let her see me. I couldn't let her find him. My mind whirled. Just then, the shadow shifted slightly, revealing a glint of something shiny in Sarah's hand. A knife? My throat tightened at the sight. Fear knotted my stomach. Why on earth would she bring a knife? "Adam," she called again, desperation coloring her tone. "They're coming for you. You need to trust me." They? The question raced through my mind. Who was coming? My fear escalated sharply. If I didn't move now, I could lose whatever little control I had left. Taking silent, careful steps, I backed away from the door until I was surrounded by the towering piles of boxes. My pulse hammered loudly in my ears as I skirted around them. I needed to find Adam. I needed to figure out what was happening before it was too late. Suddenly, the attic door swung open with a loud creak, and Sarah stepped inside, scanning the room. My heart dropped. I needed to hide, and fast. I ducked behind a stack of boxes just as she turned around, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. "I know you're here," she shouted, voice echoing off the wooden beams. I covered my mouth, horror spiraling within me. I hadn't prepared for this. My thoughts spiraled more and more rapidly. I was trapped. and it was only going to get worse from here. In that moment I realized I was no longer searching for Adam. I was searching for a way to survive, and then I heard it, a low, distant rumble. The house seemed to vibrate as though something had shifted deep within its foundation. "What was that?" Sarah asked suddenly, glancing toward the door. I held my breath, fearing what would come next. The rumble grew louder, filling the attic with a deep, unsettling resonance. I felt the vibrations move through the wooden beams, shaking like distant thunder. My chest tightened. Whatever it was, it sounded ominous, and I could sense Sarah's tension increasing as well. Stay quiet, I thought. That was my only option. I couldn't let her know I was here, not now. But then I heard another sound mingling with the rumbling, a sharp thud, like something heavy being dropped downstairs. My heart raced as fear coursed through me. What was happening in my own home? Sarah turned away from me, the knife in her hand glimmering faintly in the dim light. "They've found us," she muttered under her breath, a strange murmur that sent chills down my spine. "Adam, please, we have to get you out of here." Is it Adam she's worried about, or more about survival? I wondered, feeling a surge of frustration. I needed to know what was going on. I needed answers. The journal entry still clutched in my hand seemed to pulse with urgency. Before I could think it through, I leaned just enough to peer out from behind the boxes. I wanted to see if there was a way out, if I could sneak past her. Her focus was still on the door, anxiety etched across her features. I took a steadying breath. Suddenly the door creaked again, and my pulse shot up. Someone else was there. I watched in horror as another shadow entered the attic, thicker, more menacing than Sarah. It stopped just behind her. My throat went dry. I recognized the shape. "Sarah," the figure spoke, voice low and gravelly, echoing in the cramped attic. "You were supposed to watch him." Her expression shifted instantly from panic to anger. "I'm trying!" she snapped, stepping away from the doorway as if to block the newcomer. "Enough!" the figure barked. "You don't have time for this." My instinct screamed at me to retreat further into the shadows, but I couldn't pull my gaze away. Who was this person? What did they want with Adam? My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle that was unfolding before me. In the scuffle, Sarah's knife slipped from her grip. It clattered against the wooden floor at my feet, and every nerve in my body jolted. I froze, holding my breath, hoping against hope that I wouldn't be noticed. But then the figure turned its attention toward me, eyes locking onto mine in the dark. "That's it!" the figure yelled, lunging forward. I bolted without thinking, adrenaline surging through my veins. I sprinted to the far end of the attic, heart pounding, thoughts scattered. Where was Adam? My main goal was to escape, but a sudden realization hit me like ice water. I was going to have to face whatever was chasing me. Then everything went dark. I woke up disoriented, the darkness pressing in on me like a heavy blanket. The last thing I remembered was running, but now I found myself lying on an unforgiving cold surface. A sharp pain shot through my arm as I tried to move. I scrambled to sit up, heart racing, but my surroundings were eerily quiet. I was still in the attic, but something felt off. I could barely make out the shapes of the beams above me, and the familiar smell of dust was replaced with something metallic. My fingers brushed against something hard, an old toolbox, perhaps. Panic gripped me as I recalled the figure lunging toward me. Had they caught me? I took a deep breath and listened closely, waiting for any sign of movement. Was Sarah still here? Was Adam okay? My throat tightened as uncertainty clawed at my chest. Just then, I heard a faint sound, a dragging noise like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I scrambled to my feet, wincing at the pain in my arm. I peered over the edge of the boxes, half expecting the dark figure to emerge. Instead, I caught sight of Sarah, crouched low and shaking, her eyes wild with fear. She was staring off toward the far end of the attic, away from me. I shifted slightly, trying to catch her gaze. "What's happening?" I whispered, desperate to sound brave. Before she could respond, a crash echoed from below, rattling the attic floor. My heart skipped a beat. Whatever was going on downstairs, it only amplified the dread settling deep in my stomach. "Stay down," she mouthed, urgency written all over her face. I froze, sensing the danger closing in. Had we been hiding all this time for nothing? Just as I contemplated my next move, the dragging sound grew louder, paired with a low, menacing growl that sent shivers down my spine. Then the door burst open. A sliver of dim light pierced the attic, revealing the silhouette of the figure I had seen before. It stepped inside, its features still obscured by shadows. I could sense the danger looming closer. Sarah's knife lay abandoned on the floor, and I suddenly felt exposed. What if this figure was not just a threat to Adam, but to both of us? "Sarah," I hissed, willing her to notice the knife. We needed a plan, something to defend ourselves with. But just as I opened my mouth to speak again, the figure's gaze swept over the attic, finding me clear as day. "This ends now," it rasped, taking a step forward. I couldn't think. I lunged for the knife, my fingers brushing the cold handle when I felt a presence rush behind me. A shadow flickered, and a sharp gasp escaped Sarah's lips. "Get down," she shouted. Someone was behind me. The last vestige of safety I had vanished. My heart thudded wildly, and as I turned, everything went white with a sudden flash of pain. I woke up again, but this time the world was submerged in a haze of purple and gray. My head throbbed, a dull ache that pulsed with every heartbeat. I rubbed my temples and blinked against the stinging light filtering in from a crevice I could barely make out. "Where am I?" I croaked, my throat dry and scratchy. Fear twisted inside me, a familiar enemy poised to spring forward. I rolled onto my side and took stock of my surroundings. I wasn't in the attic anymore. Dense fog swirled around me like a living blanket, shrouding me in its cold embrace. Then it hit me. Sarah, the figure from the attic, the disturbances in the house. I scrambled to stand, but felt my legs buckle beneath me, as if the ground were shifting. A soft giggle echoed behind me, innocent but chilling in its familiarity, tightening the knot in my stomach. The laughter faded to whispers, and I turned, slowly, breathless. In the fog I could see shapes moving, children perhaps. Their small forms danced at the edge of visibility just out of reach. One child emerged from the mist, dark hair pulled back, eyes shining with a haunting glow. It was the boy, the one I had seen before. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice wavering with uncertainty as the fear crept forward. "Find us," he said, the words tinged with longing. "You have to find the others." More figures materialized just beyond recognition, their murmurs rising and falling like waves crashing against a distant shore. My chest constricted. The shadows were speaking in their own language, one I was too lost to understand. I felt a surge of resolve, followed by a weight of despair. I realized these were the children who had vanished, and somehow they were reaching out to me. They were trapped like I'd been, tethered by questions left unanswered. Then a memory crashed into my mind. Adam's laughter, the warmth of his smile, the way he pulled me close during stormy nights. There was a reason he had been here. I had awakened something bigger than myself by confronting the truth, and in doing so, I had drawn him here. "I'm sorry, Adam," I whispered. "Time runs out," the boy warned, his voice echoing in my ears like a warning bell. "You must choose." The fog thickened, and the world spun as reality began to fracture. I wanted answers, but I also craved safety, an escape from this web of shadows and echoes. But at what cost? My own fragility hung in the air. I had already lost so much. "Help us," The children chorused, voices melding into a haunting melody, the same melody from the music box. My heart sank deeper. Suddenly a strong hand clutched my arm. "We have to go." The voice was familiar. It was Sarah, pulling me from the dense fog, her expression frantic. "Where's Adam?" I asked, panic tightening my throat. "We don't have time," she urged, her grip like a lifeline. The mist began to swirl violently, eroding the edges of my vision. The children's voices rose above the chaos. "Come play with us," they beckoned, their eyes wide and empty. "Please don't," I gasped as the grip of reality threatened to slip away. "I need to help you. I need answers." But the fog thickened, drowning out my words, distorting my thoughts as I spiraled into darkness. In that moment, clarity hit. I understood. This wasn't just about finding Adam or even uncovering the truth. It was about breaking free from the chains of my own grief and anger that I had unwittingly unleashed upon the town. With newfound strength, I turned to face the massive shadows and began to will the darkness away. "I'm not afraid," I shouted, my voice steady, echoing through the fog. "You are not my power. I choose to remember, to heal." The fog wailed, swirling in a tempest, but I felt the pull of the boy near. "You have to help us." As I focused on the warmth of my memories, the laughter shared with Adam, the love that had once filled this home, a flickering light erupted from my heart. Its glow ignited the haze, burning bright, flooding the darkness with warmth, dispelling the shadows that had haunted my life. And as the last remnants of fog began to lift, I caught one final glimpse of the children before they vanished, perhaps finally released. Or maybe I had finally begun to understand. I took a deep breath and turned back to Sarah, who looked at me with wide eyes, relief washing over her features. "What just happened?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I think we're free." We stood amidst the remnants of shadows, the house quiet, the laughter silenced but echoing in my heart. I turned to Sarah. "What happened to the others?" "You felt it too?" She looked both awed and frightened. "You must have set them free." I opened my mouth to respond, but suddenly another crash reverberated through the house, shaking the floor beneath us. "It's not over," I whispered, anxiety creeping back in. The echoes of the past lingered like uninvited guests. As we stood there, united in listening to the rising heartbeat of the place, I realized the journey had only just begun. Answers still eluded us, and the truth continued to dance just out of reach, mocking and whispering behind the veil of memories. "Let's find out what that was," Sarah urged. Determination set in her eyes, and together we stepped further into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The air around us shifted, sealing our fate. Shadows lurked, pressing down upon us. But with each step into uncertainty, I carried the warmth I had awakened, even as the darkness loomed. I just hoped it would be enough.